The Galactic Empire had crushed 1,000 civilizations. Their fleets filled the stars. Their victory was mathematical certainty. So when the sensors screamed, no one panicked. One ship. No escort. No recognizable energy signature. Small. Silent. Primitive. The admirals laughed. Then the ship appeared inside their formation. No warp flash. No warning. No violation alarms, because the laws of physics themselves lagged behind it. A strategist whispered, voice shaking. That design, that's not alien. The War Council went silent as ancient records unlocked. Human. A species that didn't conquer space. They survived it. A species that never lost wars. Because they never fought them twice. And as the lone warship powered up, the Galactic Empire finally understood the truth. If the humans were back, this war was already over. The Galactic Empire had existed for so long that no living species remembered a time before it. Entire star systems were born, burned, and forgotten under its rule. Civilizations rose believing themselves eternal, only to be reduced to historical footnotes archived in the Empire's memory vaults. Over 1 million species flew its banners, willingly or otherwise, and its fleets were said to be so vast that their shadows could eclipse suns. Power, after all, was not something the Empire questioned. It was something the universe had accepted. At the heart of its dominion sat the Imperial War Council, a chamber carved from a hollowed moon. Ancient, towering beings of every conceivable biology filled the circular hall, scaled strategists, crystalline tacticians, floating neural masses encased in light. They had waged war longer than most stars had burned. Today's session was routine. Another border system. Another defiant coalition. Another inevitable conquest. A holographic projection displayed the target system, blue-white stars, resource-rich worlds, primitive defenses. Resistance probability, one admiral asked, its voice layered with mechanical echoes. Negligible, replied the strategist corps. Local species possess outdated shielding and sub-relativistic weaponry. Estimated campaign duration, 12 standard cycles. Mild amusement rippled through the chamber. 12 cycles was generous. The Empire no longer planned for defeat. It planned for efficiency. Deploy the third expansion fleet, ordered the High Executor. I want compliance before the next council rotation. As fleets began mobilizing, a junior archivist hesitated near the edge of the chamber. Its tendrils twitched nervously. Permission to speak, it said. The High Executor's gaze turned cold. Granted. Briefly. There are historical anomalies associated with this region, the archivist said. Extremely old records. Pre-Imperial. The council barely listened. Pirate myths, one general scoffed. Extinct species, another added. The galaxy is full of them. The archivist hesitated, then projected a faded symbol, angular, asymmetrical, unmistakably crude compared to modern designs. Humans, it said quietly. Silence followed. Then laughter. Not mocking laughter. Dismissive laughter. Those self-destructive bipeds, an admiral chuckled. They annihilated themselves long before we reached the outer spiral. Fragmented governments. Emotional decision-making. Nuclear tantrums, another sneered. They were never a threat. The High Executor waved the image away. Ancient irrelevance. Humans failed the Great Filter, like countless others. The archivist wanted to argue, but stopped. Because the official records agreed. Humanity had burned bright, fast, and chaotically. They had split their own world with weapons they barely understood, poisoned their skies, destabilized their biosphere. By the time the Empire's explorers reached humanity's sector, there was nothing left worth conquering. Just silent ruins and drifting debris. The lesson had been archived under a single phrase. Technologically promising. Strategically incompetent. The council returned to its agenda. Star charts shifted. Fleet formations aligned. Victory calculations finalized. Beyond the chamber's reinforced hull, millions of warships ignited their engines in perfect synchronization. Space itself seemed to tremble under the Empire's advance. None of them noticed a brief distortion at the edge of the border system. A ripple so small it registered as background noise. One ship. Watching. Waiting. And while the Galactic Empire prepared for another effortless conquest, the universe quietly balanced itself. Because confidence, when left unchecked, had always been humanity's favorite weapon. The first warning did not come as an alarm. It came as a correction. Deep within the Empire's border command station, sensor arrays recalibrated themselves without instruction. Long-range scanners blinked, adjusted, and quietly rewrote their own data, an action strictly forbidden by Imperial protocols. A junior sensor officer noticed the change. "Command," it reported, mandibles clicking in confusion, "we're receiving a localized anomaly in Sector Gray 7. "Define anomaly," the overseer replied without looking up. "There is mass," the officer said. "But no corresponding energy signature. No warp residue. No acceleration trail." The overseer finally turned. "Then it's debris." The officer hesitated. "Debris doesn't correct our instruments." A holographic display expanded, revealing a faint distortion, barely visible against the cosmic background. Not light. Not shadow. Something between. The system flagged it as impossible. Empire sensors were designed to detect everything: neutrino flows, gravitational shear, quantum fluctuations. They were calibrated to the laws of the universe as the Empire understood them. This object appeared to be obeying different ones. "Run a threat analysis," the overseer ordered. The results returned instantly. Threat level, 0. Classification, unidentified non-combat object. Laughter echoed through the command deck. "A probe, then," someone said. "Automated. Probably ancient. Or malfunctioning," another added. "Shall we send a patrol to vaporize it?" "Negative," the overseer replied. "No reason to waste fuel." The object drifted closer. Still no emissions. Still no communication. Still no violation flags. Then, without warning, it vanished. Not cloaked. Not warped. Gone. The sensors screamed as space snapped back into place, desperately recalculating reality. Data buffers overflowed. Timestamps desynchronized by fractions of a second. "Where did it go?" the officer demanded. Before anyone could answer, the anomaly reappeared. Closer. Much closer. Inside the system's defensive perimeter. This time, it resolved into a shape. A ship. Small. Angular. Asymmetrical. Primitive. No energy shields shimmered around it. No glowing conduits marked its hull. Its design lacked the elegant symmetry common to advanced civilizations. Instead, it looked functional. Purpose-built. Scarred. As if it had survived things it was never meant to. "Identify," the overseer commanded. The database searched every known registry across the Empire's million species. No match. Weapon scanners activated automatically. "No power spike," the officer said slowly. "No weapon charging detected." Then the most disturbing report arrived. "Command, the ship isn't accelerating." "What?" "It's not using thrust. It's not generating momentum. It's simply there." A senior analyst leaned closer to the display. "That's impossible." The ship rotated, just slightly, toward the border station. Not aggressively. Not defensively. Deliberately. A signal pulse brushed against Imperial sensors, not a message, not a transmission. More like a handshake that never completed. And then, just as suddenly as before, the ship disappeared again. Silence filled the command deck. The overseer swallowed. Report this to the War Council, it said quietly. What classification? The overseer stared at the empty space where the ship had been. Unknown, it answered. Potentially strategic. Far beyond the border station, Imperial fleets continued their advance, unaware that something had just crossed into their space without permission. Or resistance. Or fear. The Imperial War Council had not convened an emergency session in over 3,000 cycles. Routine sessions were the mark of dominance. Emergency sessions were the mark of uncertainty. The chamber's gravity shifted as ancient beings arrived through personal gateways, some dragging entire life support environments behind them. Holographic star maps replaced conquest projections, focusing instead on a single, insignificant border system. The High Executor spoke first. Report. The border overseer's image flickered into existence, posture rigid. An unidentified vessel has penetrated Imperial space without triggering any defensive systems. A murmur spread through the council. Impossible, one admiral snapped. Our borders are sealed by predictive interdiction fields. And yet, the overseer replied, the vessel appeared, vanished, and reappeared within our perimeter. Cloaking? Negative. Wormhole? Negative. The High Executor's eyes narrowed. Then explain. The overseer hesitated, then said the words no strategist ever wanted to hear. Our instruments do not understand how it moved. Silence. A crystalline tactician pulsed faintly. Scale of the vessel? Smaller than a standard patrol craft. Laughter rippled through the chamber, thin, uneasy laughter. A reconnaissance drone, someone said. Or a malfunctioning relic. The High Executor raised a claw. Show us. Sensor recordings filled the chamber. The ship's angular silhouette rotated slowly in frozen time. Scarred hull plating. Exposed structural elements. No ornamental design. Primitive. But wrong. Several ancient minds leaned closer. That configuration, whispered an archivist entity. It violates modern engineering logic. Then it is inefficient, an admiral scoffed. No, the archivist corrected. It is survivable. The High Executor turned sharply. Clarify. Modern vessels optimize for shields, the archivist said. This one optimizes for failure. Redundancy layered upon redundancy. It expects to be hit. The council shifted uncomfortably. Run historical cross-reference, the High Executor ordered. Ancient data vaults unlocked, records sealed since before the Empire's expansion era. Symbols long classified as extinct threats surfaced. One name repeated across fragmented warnings. Human. The chamber froze. That species is gone, a general said instantly. Their home system is dead. Yes, the archivist replied. Because they made it so. Confusion followed. They destroyed themselves, the general insisted. No, said a voice from the shadows. All eyes turned to an elder strategist, one of the last who remembered the Empire's earliest expansions. They erased themselves, it said calmly. There is a difference. The elder gestured, and forbidden records streamed into the chamber. Human war doctrines. Human contingency planning. Human engineering philosophies. They built weapons that did not announce themselves, the elder continued. They did not value elegance. They valued inevitability. Another admiral scoffed. Every species claims inevitability. Yes, the elder agreed. But humans never claimed it. They planned for it. The ship's image rotated again. That vessel, the elder said quietly, is not designed to win battles. It is designed to end wars before they begin. A strategist core flared. Exaggeration. The elder's gaze hardened. Humans don't fight fair. They don't fight clean. They fight once. The High Executor felt something unfamiliar tighten in its chest cavity. Why return now? It asked. The overseer's image flickered. There's one more detail, it said. The vessel did not scan us. Explain. It already knew where everything was. The chamber fell silent. The High Executor slowly closed its claws. Raise the alert level, it ordered. All fleets to defensive posture. A pause. Then, reluctantly. And locate that ship. Immediately. Deep within the Empire's data vaults, a long-forgotten warning reactivated itself, glowing with quiet inevitability. If humanity returns, it will not be to conquer. It will be to correct. The Imperial fleets had never known uncertainty. Thousands of warships formed perfect geometric formations across the border system, dreadnoughts the size of continents, carriers bristling with weapons capable of shattering moons, screens of escorts layered with overlapping shields. Every vector was calculated. Every probability mapped. If the unknown vessel appeared again, it would be erased. That was the assumption. Reality disagreed. Space folded, not violently, not dramatically, but subtly, as if the universe had taken a shallow breath. Sensors lagged behind sight. Causality stumbled. And the ship was suddenly there. Not at the edge of the formation. Not approaching from a vector. But resting calmly at the very center of the Imperial fleet. No alarm sounded. Because no threshold had been crossed. The ship was present. A wave of confusion rippled through command channels. How did it bypass the interdiction net? Why didn't the gravity wells trigger? Why are targeting solutions failing? The human vessel rotated slowly, indifferent to the chaos surrounding it. Up close, its design was unmistakably crude by Imperial standards, flat armor plates bolted rather than grown, visible seams, structural ribs exposed like scars worn with pride. Its hull bore markings no translator could immediately parse. Except one. An ancient linguistic module, dormant for millennia, activated without request. HSS Perseverance. The name echoed through the fleet. A strategist whispered, it names itself, after endurance. No shields flared around the vessel. No weapon ports opened. No energy spikes registered. And yet, every ship in the Imperial formation began reporting minor system errors. Gravitational sensors drifted out of calibration. Time synchronization arrays desynced by microseconds. Targeting computers disagreed on where the human ship was. Or when. It's not jamming us, an analyst said, voice tight with disbelief. It's distorting reference frames. The High Executor's flagship attempted to lock weapons. Failed. The targeting reticle slid off the human ship as if repelled by logic itself. Fire a ranging pulse, an admiral ordered. A low-energy scan swept across the vessel. The results were impossible. No exotic matter, the analyst reported. No unknown particles. It's built from standard materials. Then how? It's not the materials, the analyst interrupted. It's the architecture. The human ship spoke. Not through sound. Not through energy. But through space itself. A comm signal propagated across the fleet, embedded within background radiation, so subtle it bypassed every defensive filter. A single sentence resolved in every command center, translated perfectly into every language. You have entered protected space. The words carried no threat. No anger. No urgency. Which made them terrifying. A senior admiral bristled. Protected by whom? The answer came instantly. By us. Silence followed. The human ship adjusted its orientation, slightly angling its nose toward the densest cluster of Imperial vessels. Still no weapons. Still no shields. Just certainty. Demand identification, the High Executor ordered. A pause. Then another message. You already know who we are. Data surged through Imperial networks as ancient files unlocked themselves, files that should have required unanimous council authorization. They had been waiting. Human naval doctrine scrolled past horrified analysts. Humans did not believe in overwhelming firepower. They believed in decisive physics. They did not design ships to win engagements. They designed them to survive the impossible long enough to make a point. Executor, a strategist said quietly, the vessel is not powering weapons. Then why are we losing control? The executor demanded. The strategist swallowed. Because the ship is not a weapon, it said. It's a boundary. As if to confirm the statement, the human vessel's presence intensified. Gravity bent inward. Space around it smoothed, simplified, made obedient. The Empire's fleets, built to dominate a predictable universe, suddenly found themselves operating in a reality that no longer asked for permission. The final message arrived without emphasis. Withdraw. This is your only warning. For the first time in its endless history, the Galactic Empire hesitated. And in that hesitation, it began to understand a truth it had long dismissed. Humanity had never needed numbers. Only resolve. The Galactic Empire had retreated from many things over its long existence. Plagues. Supernovas. Unstable dimensions. It had never retreated from a warning. Silence stretched across command channels as the human ship's final message lingered in the minds of every admiral. Withdraw. To the Empire, the word was not a suggestion. It was an insult. The High Executor's claws tightened around the command throne. One ship does not dictate Imperial movement. But Executor, a strategist interjected, our systems are still destabilizing. We should remind it what power looks like, the Executor snapped. A command pulse rippled outward. Designate 5 frontline battleships. Precision strike. Non-catastrophic yield. The order was deliberate. Measured. Merciful, even. The selected battleships, towering behemoths layered in radiant shields, adjusted their orientation. Weapon arrays warmed, glowing with contained stellar fury. Energy readings spiked across the formation. The human ship did not move. Did not shield. Did not respond. Fire. 5 lances of condensed energy crossed the void, perfectly synchronized, mathematically flawless. They struck the space where the human vessel existed. And passed through it. Not because the ship wasn't there. But because there was no longer where it used to be. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then reality folded inward. The 5 Imperial battleships shuddered as if struck by an invisible fist. Hull plating screamed. Shields collapsed, not from overload, but from irrelevance. Internal gravity inverted. Mass turned against itself. One ship imploded silently, crushed by its own weight compressed into a point smaller than an atom. Another twisted, elongated, then snapped as time inside it flowed faster than time outside. The remaining 3 vanished, no explosion, no debris, simply erased from local causality. Imperial sensors went blind. No energy discharge detected, analysts shouted. No weapon signature. Then what happened? An admiral demanded. The answer came from a trembling physics officer. They weren't destroyed, it said. They were corrected. The human ship finally moved. Just a meter forward. The space it left behind collapsed smoothly, like water filling a void. A message followed with calm, almost regretful. We warned you. Shock paralyzed the Imperial command structure. 5 capital ships, each capable of annihilating a world, gone in less than a second. No heat. No radiation. No trace. How did it attack without firing? The High Executor demanded. A senior analyst answered, voice hollow. It didn't fire a weapon, it said. It altered the local constants of physics. The ships could no longer exist as designed. The realization struck like a supernova. The Empire built weapons to overpower enemies. Humans built tools to redefine the battlefield. Executor, the strategist whispered, if that vessel applies the same effect to the fleet. The calculation finished itself. Entire armadas reduced to mathematical impossibilities. Civilizations erased without knowing they were under attack. The human ship broadcast once more, its signal threading effortlessly through Imperial defenses. This demonstration was limited. Further resistance will escalate to correction. The High Executor felt something it had never logged before. Fear. Not of destruction, but of inevitability. Orders flooded out in chaos, retreat vectors, defensive formations, emergency protocol overrides. Ships collided as formations broke apart, discipline unraveling under the weight of the impossible. At the center of it all, the human warship remained motionless. Unharmed. Unimpressed. A single vessel, holding back an empire, not with force, but with the quiet authority of a species that had learned long ago. If you master the rules of the universe, you never need permission to break them. The Imperial fleets withdrew just enough to breathe. Formations loosened. Emergency field stabilized. Damaged command nodes screamed for recalibration. Across thousands of ships, one question echoed with growing urgency. Why had the humans vanished? The High Executor demanded answers. Open all restricted archives, it ordered. Level Omega. I want everything. The request should have taken cycles. It took seconds. As if the data had been waiting. Ancient files unlocked themselves, records predating the Empire's first expansion wave. Human origin signals, intercepted transmissions, observational logs from long-dead scout probes. And then, something else. A human voice. Not a broadcast. A log. Crackling with age, but unmistakably calm. If anyone is hearing this, it means we failed to stay invisible. The chamber stilled. The archivist translated rapidly as the log continued. Humanity is not extinct. We stepped back. Images accompanied the words, Earth, scarred but alive. Human colonies dismantling orbital infrastructure. Entire fleets burning themselves into controlled stellar dives. Not destroyed. Deleted. They erased their own footprint, an admiral whispered. Yes, the archivist replied. Systematically. Deliberately. The log continued. We learned something the hard way. Power doesn't attract peace. It attracts tests. Scenes shifted, early human wars, escalating weapons, collateral devastation. Planets rendered uninhabitable not by enemies, but by victory itself. Every time we won, the voice said, someone else lost everything. The Empire's council watched in stunned silence as projections showed alien worlds shattered by wars humans hadn't intended to escalate, but couldn't control once begun. The log changed tone. So we chose a rule. Text appeared beside the voice, stark and uncompromising. We do not expand. We do not conquer. We do not intervene. A pause. Unless someone crosses the line. The High Executor leaned forward. What line? The answer came in cold, mathematical clarity. Extermination. Enslavement. Galactic-scale dominance. When a civilization decides it has the right to end others, it becomes a variable that must be corrected. The chamber filled with unease. Humans had not disappeared because they were weak. They had disappeared because they were too effective. They chose isolation, a strategist murmured, to protect the galaxy from themselves. The log continued. We built guardians. Not fleets. Not empires. Schematics filled the chamber, human warships designed to operate alone, self-sufficient for centuries. Not symbols of power, but instruments of restraint. If you're seeing one of our ships, the voice said quietly, it means you're already standing on the wrong side of history. The recording ended. Silence consumed the War Council. The High Executor finally understood the implication. The human vessel they faced was not an invasion force. It was a failsafe. A boundary marker drawn by a species that had learned restraint the way others learned war. Executor, the strategist said softly, we didn't provoke a sleeping power. We triggered a protocol. Far from Imperial space, and regions long dismissed as empty, ancient human systems began to stir, still watching, still waiting. Because humanity had never left the galaxy. It had simply stepped back. And trusted that no one would be foolish enough to make them return. The Imperial fleets had stopped retreating. Not because they had regained courage. But because fear had finally overridden instinct. At extreme range from the human warship, the Empire's armadas hovered in fractured formations. Engines idled. Weapons remained powered down. No one wanted to be the next to make a mistake history would remember. The High Executor broke the silence. "What does it want?" it asked. As if summoned, the human ship moved. Not toward the fleet. Away. It drifted toward a barren moon at the edge of the system, airless, lifeless, already catalogued and stripped of resources centuries earlier. An irrelevant rock. The human vessel positioned itself at a precise distance. Then it stopped. Imperial sensors surged to maximum sensitivity. Energy buildup detected, an admiral asked tensely. "No," an analyst replied. "Nothing." Gravitational distortion? Minimal. Quantum fluctuation? Within background variance. Confusion deepened. The human ship did not glow. Did not charge. Did not threaten. It simply existed. Then a message arrived, broadcast system-wide, calm and almost instructional. "Observe." The moon shuddered. Not from impact. Not from force. Its orbital data began to drift, numbers losing meaning as constants subtly unraveled. Density readings contradicted mass. Timestamps around the moon slipped out of sequence. "What's happening?" someone whispered. The surface of the moon did not crack. It did not explode. It began to blur. As if reality itself had lost confidence in the moon's right to be there. Matter unraveled at the subatomic level, not violently, but cleanly. Molecular bonds released without heat. Atomic nuclei separated without radiation. The moon's shadow faded before the moon itself did. And then, it was gone. No debris field. No shockwave. No afterimage. The space where the moon had been was smooth. Perfectly continuous. Imperial sensors screamed, recalibrated, then went silent. "There is nothing there," an analyst said, voice hollow. "No particles. No energy residue. It's as if the moon never existed." A realization spread through the command decks like a slow poison. This wasn't destruction. This was removal. The human ship transmitted again. This was a non-lethal demonstration. Non-lethal. The words crushed what remained of Imperial confidence. If that weapon were applied to a world, an admiral began. The strategist cut in softly, there would be no refugees. No ruins. No warning. Another message followed, colder now, not in tone, but in implication. "We do not target populations. We target decisions." The High Executor's claws trembled. "You could have done this to us," it said aloud, knowing the human ship would hear. The reply came after a brief pause. "Correct. We chose not to." That was worse. Because mercy implied control. Across the fleets, captains finally understood the nature of human restraint. The Empire had assumed limits were weaknesses. Humans treated limits as choices. A final transmission arrived, carrying the weight of finality. "Your expansion patterns indicate systemic extermination. Your governance model relies on irreversible domination. This is the line. Cross it again, and correction will be total." The High Executor closed its eyes. For the first time in its existence, the Galactic Empire was not being defeated. It was being judged. Orders began to flow, not shouted, not panicked, but heavy with surrender. "All fleets, disengage. Begin full withdrawal. Transmit cease expansion directives to all sectors." The Empire did not flee. It complied. At the center of the system, the human warship remained motionless, watching until the last Imperial vessel turned away. Only then did it move, slipping back into the quiet geometry of space, leaving behind a galaxy forever altered. Because the demonstration was over. And the lesson was clear. Humanity did not need to conquer the stars. They only needed to remind the galaxy why some powers choose to stay unseen. The Imperial fleets had retreated. Not in tactical order. Not in prideful maneuver. Not in strategic withdrawal. They had retreated because the concept of victory had been redefined. Across the galaxy's edge, the once mighty armadas faltered. Formation coherence collapsed. Dreadnoughts drifted aimlessly as engines struggled to compensate for minor spacetime distortions left behind by the human warship. Sensors failed to reconcile what reality demanded of them. Even the most seasoned admirals, the ancient beings who had survived supernovae, black hole flares, and galactic uprisings, felt their minds slip into a fog of doubt. "It's impossible," one whispered to another, voice trembling. "We were supposed to dominate, to control." A younger tactician, panicked, attempted to give new orders. The comms failed. Commands looped in feedback, returning as meaningless signals. The Empire's calculations could not predict outcomes against a force that did not fight by the rules they knew. Back at the War Council chamber, the High Executor faced the grim reality. The archives, previously dismissed as curiosity, now glowed with undeniable clarity. Humans had not been a threat because they lacked power. Humans had been a threat because they understood power differently. "Have we underestimated them?" an admiral asked. The High Executor did not answer immediately. Every fleet report, every lost ship, every erased moon in memory pressed on its conscience. The answer was obvious. "Yes," it finally said, voice tight with an unfamiliar emotion, fear. The Empire tried to salvage dignity. Fleets that could once level worlds were instructed to retreat to deep space. Some commanders, shocked, panicked, and confused, surrendered their positions outright, transmitting messages of compliance to any human detection signals, hoping for mercy. Others fled, trying to rationalize the anomaly as a natural phenomenon. But deep in their core, every being, admiral, tactician, executor, knew. The humans had returned not to negotiate. Not to conquer. They had returned to correct. Reports from fleet intelligence confirmed the grim reality: no ship that had engaged or defied the human warship survived intact. No communication, no debris, no salvageable data. It wasn't destruction, it was erasure, a surgical correction of the imperial hubris that had gone unchecked for millennia. The High Executor finally issued a council-wide decree. All offensive operations cease immediately. All fleets return to safe sectors. Full compliance with human directives is mandatory. Even the words sounded hollow in the chamber. To follow them was to admit the truth: the Galactic Empire, thought to be invincible, eternal, unchallenged, was broken. Outside, the stars seemed to align differently. The fleets were shadows of their former selves, drifting under the silent gaze of the human warship, which now observed without action. For the first time in thousands of cycles, the Empire felt the weight of its own mortality. The galaxy, long dominated by fear of empire, now understood another fear. A fear rooted not in conquest or aggression, but in intelligence, restraint, and absolute certainty. Humans had returned. And they had already won. The High Executor exhaled, a sound that carried across the council chamber. Not relief. Not hope. Recognition. The Empire was no longer apex. It had merely survived long enough to witness the return of a species that had always been capable of ending it. And humanity, quiet and deliberate, had chosen judgment over chaos. For now. The galaxy had never been quieter. The Imperial fleets limped back toward their core systems, wounded in ways that could not be measured in hull integrity or lost ships. Confidence, arrogance, and certainty, the hallmarks of the Empire, had been shattered. Every calculation, every doctrine, every policy was now suspect. They had faced the impossible and survived only because humanity had allowed it. Far beyond the broken formations, the human warship drifted in perfect stillness. HSS Perseverance, its name etched across the hull, reflected starlight like a shard of calm against the chaos. The vessel had done nothing but exist. Nothing but demonstrate restraint. Nothing but remind the galaxy that limits were chosen, not enforced. On board, Captain Elara Kane observed the stars through the viewport. Her crew moved with quiet efficiency, aware of the weight they carried. The galaxy had seen humans once and thought them extinct. Now, it had seen humans again, and learned that extinction had been a lie, a story crafted to protect both the galaxy and themselves. "Status report," she said softly. "All systems nominal, Captain," replied Lieutenant Aaron. "No engagement. No damage. The fleets are dispersing as ordered." Elara's eyes traced the fading trails of the Imperial armadas. They were not running, they were acknowledging. Respect, fear, and recognition intertwined in a silent surrender that needed no words. She leaned back, considering the delicate balance they maintained. Humanity had returned not for conquest, not for revenge, not for glory. They returned to correct the imbalance, to remind civilizations that power without responsibility was a liability, and that restraint could be more terrifying than destruction. "Set a course for the outer rim," she said. "We'll observe from a distance. Let them rebuild themselves, with the memory of what it means to cross the line." The ship adjusted its trajectory, slipping into the dark void between stars. HSS Perseverance was alone, small, yet unmatched. Its presence was proof that the galaxy's apex predators could exist without dominance, that survival did not require subjugation. Messages transmitted silently across the Empire, warnings embedded in every system they could detect. Humanity was watching. Humanity was patient. Humanity would act only when necessary. The galaxy, for all its wars and ambitions, had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. And in the quiet corridors of the human vessel, Captain Kane spoke a truth older than the stars themselves. The galaxy feared monsters. It should have feared humans who chose peace. The stars stretched on endlessly, indifferent yet now subtly reordered by those who understood them. The humans had not conquered. They had not destroyed. They had only returned. And that was enough. For now, the galaxy was theirs, not through fleets, not through force, but through inevitability. Because some powers do not need to fight to win. Some powers need only to exist. And humanity existed.